welcome to the video today. It's great to see everyone today. We're going to be watching some true crime or some React stuff in general. A lot of these come from my Discord. So if you don't already know or aren't already a part of it, I have a Discord server. We have a React suggestions tab in that server in which people submit videos that they would love for us to watch on stream. And a lot of you get to watch the ones that you put on there during these. So join the Discord. As for you YouTubers, you've missed the live stream, but I stream almost every day except Sunday. Sometimes true crime, sometimes mostly not. And I like to think we have a good community here. But also, if you're on YouTube, consider subscribing to the YouTube channel that you watch this on, because I like to be told that's a great, I mean, yeah, true. That's true too. I like to be told I'm doing a good job. So I appreciate it. Let's get into the videos right now. Go my intro. All right, we've got an interesting one. And I only say that based on title alone. But killer lives with dead body for 25 years. This is from Stay Awake Crime and Psychology. Quite the title. I, for one, am very curious about how this is even, if this is true, considering decomposition gets really smelly pretty quick and pretty distinguishably, if that's a word, I don't remember. So I'm curious how this is even a thing.
This is 59-year-old Violet Rose. Violet is about to find out that she has been sleeping directly above a dead body for the past 25 years.
I was going to ask the obvious question.
I was going to say, I assume we're here because
yes,
you
They
found something.
him.
yes.
May I ask where?
Under one of the bedrooms.
Hey, man, Violet. I'm not sleeping.
It's okay, Violet. Violet, it's okay. Hey, Violet, man. You didn't know it. You trusted him. Okay? It's okay, Violet. It's okay.
I'm sleeping there.
I understand, Violet. I understand.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Oh, you're going to get through this. You're going to get through this.
Bro.
Oh, well, that's a shock.
Perhaps what is even more shocking is how this body got there in the first place.
He told me that she was at his house, and I guess they argued, and then he shot her.
Did he say what he do with the body?
He put her under the slab in one of the bedrooms.
Along the body. Well, I understand that.
Is Kimberly on the property?
No.
Is there any evidence of her murder on the property?
Shouldn't be. No.
Every step of this is just inhumane.
All right, I say move, boys. Feet up. Hands! Let me see your hands! Hands up! Hands up!
It's insane. It's psychotic. That's what it is.
Did you murder Kim?
No.
Wait, was that the...
34-year-old Kimberly Langwell went missing in July of 1999, vanished
That looked like the judge from the AI court case guy.
without a trace. Her purse and keys still inside the car. This case has captivated the public's interest. Sadly, for 25
Texas.
years, Kimberly
Not.
remained missing, and her family longed for answers. Until now.
On July 9th, 1999, 34-year-old Kimberly Langwell went missing after finishing her shift at the Mobil Oil Refinery in Beaumont, Texas. Her car was later
1999.
found 7 miles away, abandoned in a mall parking lot. But the vehicle was squeaky clean. With no witnesses and a teenage daughter at home, the investigators found it highly unlikely that Kimberly had disappeared by her own free will. The Beaumont Police Department immediately started interviewing people that could have been involved in Kimberly's disappearance. But at the time, there wasn't enough evidence to arrest anyone. The case went cold for 24 years until being reopened in 2023 after a true crime TV show reignited law enforcement's interest in the case. They went through the suspect list from the original investigation and began interviewing them one by one.
Bringing back some memories for you. It's been a long time.
As I sit here, it's hard for me to believe I wrote this. Obviously, it's my handwriting.
This is Frank McCormick. Frank was Kim's workplace supervisor back in 1999. Despite being a married man, Frank often showed up outside of Kim's house with fancy chocolates and handwritten love letters. But these romantic gestures quickly got out of hand. Frank became obsessed with Kim, and his letters were getting more and more concerning. For example, Kim, I have developed this terribly strong crush on you. Something must be done about it. I can hardly work. It consumes all of my free time. Please help me to deal with this. Frank sent dozens of letters just like this. He also sent her various drawings of sword-wielding fantasy women with Kim's face pasted onto them. Since Kim had just left work before her disappearance, the investigators wondered if Frank had stalked and attacked her. However, Frank was not Kim's killer. Frank's alibi was that he had left work around...
Frank! What? That's so wild.
5 p.m. to prepare for a
And he's
poker
not
night
the
with his
guilty
buddies.
one, apparently.
He went home and showered, then went to a grocery store to buy playing cards and snacks for the night. He then went back home around 7 p.m., right when people started showing up. He even had the receipts to prove this. It didn't take long for the detectives to cross Frank off their list and move on to their next suspect.
That's crazy, bro.
This is Kim's ex-boyfriend, Terry Rose. Terry and Kim lived together for 5 years, from 1993 to 1998. They then broke up and Kim moved out. But they stayed in touch for the next year leading up to her disappearance. Despite this friendly relationship, Kim's family told...
Surprised the receipts survived? Well, that was probably the result of the original investigation. So, and then evidence, you know, is stored digitally, especially nowadays, so it's very easy to keep things. And even that, evidence lockers are very tight because of all of the complications with chain of evidence and the ability for evidence to be thrown away if there's any violation of chain of evidence inside of a police department. Lawyers are very good at catching evidence tampering nowadays and are very good at being able to wait, how like what, how do I know the specifics, like of which, like how lawyers know? Well, it's very dependent. It's very dependent on things, but there are very so like I said, when police, well, I didn't say this, but I'll say it now. When police have evidence for cases, including cold cases, so this is probably, this evidence has probably been sitting inside of this police department for the two and a half decades it's been. So when evidence is submitted into the police department for investigations, there's an officer that is in charge of the evidence locker. Like there's an officer on shift at the police department at all times who's like watching the evidence. In an ideal world, I don't know, like depends on the department, I guess, who knows. The officers who go into the lockers have to sign in and sign out. And when they sign out, they have to present if they're signing out with anything. Like I'm signing out with the evidence from the Kimberly case, for example, right? And when the evidence is brought into the department, all of the evidence is laid out and all of that evidence is logged and listed as present inside of the evidence, right? So when that officer is in charge of the evidence, he knows what is in that exact evidence box, right? So if a case were to come up and the prosecution or the defense were to get probably the defense in this case, were to get their hands on the evidence and see a discrepancy in the evidence available and what is listed, that's a major issue. Because the defense gets access to the evidence the prosecution has and vice versa. That's how both sides are able to make an equal argument, because they're able to see each other's evidence. That's what the preliminary hearing is all about. The evidence is brought to the judge. The judge decides what's actually like important evidence or allowed, and they get to argue about what is actually admissible. And this would be the time in which a defense lawyer could be like, hey, why isn't this piece of evidence inside? Why wasn't this piece of evidence inside of the evidence box from the Beaumont, Texas Police Department's evidence locker when we got access to it? It was listed as being there years ago, and now it's gone. Why is that? And that's why like chain of custody exists. So like if something like that happens, they can go to the officers who are in charge of the evidence locker and be like, this officer signed out with this evidence box this day of this time of this year, etc. It's possibly him. It might not be. He was the one that did it right. It might not have been him. It might have been somebody else. Sometimes there's been times where cops like go in for a different evidence thing and like steal something from somewhere else and like check out with a different piece of evidence in order to like be covert about it. But that's kind of the problem, is like if there is a discrepancy in the consistency of the evidence, it puts all of the evidence in question. Because if they can get away with tampering with one of them, and for this example, removing one of them completely, what says they didn't do anything to the rest of it? Make sense? And lawyers will be very, very like, yeah, I mean, this isn't even talking about cameras for sure. Like that, I mean, this is pre-video recording, like everywhere, I guess. We're talking like 1999 when this happened. But yeah, video makes it even harder now. But yeah, evidence tampering will destroy an entire case. And that's why even the police are very serious about evidence keep up. Because like I said, like the common term is fruit of the poison tree or whatever, where like this, like it, for example, the apple you're looking at looks good. It's a good looking apple, but for some reason, there's poison apples being grown on the same tree. So how can we trust that apple when a bunch of the other apples on the same tree are poisoned? You kind of can't. You kind of take a huge risk by trusting that apple. It puts the entire tree in question. Exactly. So when one piece of evidence is missing or seen to have been tampered with out of 50 evidence pieces, how can you trust the other 49 when one is clearly been tampered with?
The investigators that Terry was extremely controlling and he abused Kim both emotionally and physically during their relationship. He would also constantly keep track of Kim's whereabouts and bombard her friends with phone calls whenever she paid them a visit, even
normal.
After their breakup. However,
Super
these
normal.
obsessive
Wow.
phone calls suddenly came to a halt on the day that Kim disappeared. Kim's daughter Tiffany said that the last thing her mom told her was that she was going to Terry's house.
She called me and she had just gotten off work, maybe around 5:30. She
Getting off topic, but if evidence is dismissed in court, how can you stop the jury from taking it into account? So you wouldn't be able to, but that is the whole purpose of a preliminary hearing. So a preliminary hearing is like when the prosecution and defense and suspect and victim, etc., depending on what happens, come together pre-jury, pre-trial, preliminary, and present the evidence that they wish to use in terms of like argument, right? And that's part of when defense and prosecution get access to each other's evidence. And then in those cases, that's when they argue the validity of either side's evidence in terms of being presented actually at court. And lawyers can get in trouble for presenting a piece of evidence that was deemed as inadmissible, by the way. So like you can't technically prevent the jury from not taking it into account, but the preliminary hearing is kind of to make sure that things like that aren't going to be presented if they were seen as irrelevant or inadmissible for whatever reason the judge seems fit.
Told me that we had made plans that day that we were going to go out to eat. She told me that she was going to stop by Terry's, that she had to help him with something. I don't know. It was something about hanging a ward or something. I didn't really pay attention to it. Terry told me he didn't know where she was.
When Terry was questioned by the police, he said that Kim had stopped by his place after work to help him put up some 1x4s on the ceiling, and she stayed for a short time before leaving to pick up Tiffany. He later admitted to the authorities that he had no alibi after 5:30 p.m., up until he met up with his friend David Wiley a few hours later.
Oh, that's
they
plenty
hung
of
out
time.
playing pool until around midnight before parting ways. They then got breakfast the next morning. 25 years later, Terry was telling detectives the same story.
What's your theory on what happened to her? I don't really know.
Terry claimed that he and Kim were good friends right up to her disappearance, and he had no reason to harm her. He denied being obsessed and controlling following the breakup, and said that both of them had moved on by then.
Once we broke it off, I figured just leave her alone.
At this point, they didn't have any evidence to disprove Terry's story, so they went to speak with David Wiley.
Mr. David.
Yes, sir.
How you doing today?
Good, how you doing?
I like the name Wiley.
Knowing Terry like you knew Terry, did he have anything to do with Kimberly's disappearance?
I don't think so. Not at all, and I just don't think he's that type of person.
David had nothing to say about Terry. He didn't know about Kim going to Terry's house and had no clue what Terry was doing before they met up to play pool. However, the detectives struggled to believe anything either man was saying. They brought the case in front of a grand jury, and Terry and David were both summoned to testify under oath. During their testimony, they told their usual stories, but for some reason, David was extremely nervous. Seeing his behavior under oath, the detectives asked David to come in for a polygraph test. David refused. However, hours later, his attorney reached out to the detectives and told them he had information to share. But he wanted immunity. The detectives agreed, and David went to the police station for an audio recorded interview.
Our goal is you're here to tell the truth, okay?
David said that on July 9th, 1999, he had just finished work when he received a phone call from Terry.
He called me and asked me to pick him up at Walmart. Probably between 5 and 6. He just said, when you get close to the parking lot, call me. I called. When I pulled up next to him, he was in Kim's car. He said that he did not like that parking lot and to follow him to the corner of Dowling and Phelan. Used to be an Eckerd's store there and Market Basket and other businesses.
And so y'all left Walmart, you
went
followed them
down
to Colonnade?
Turned into the Colonnade shopping center parking lot. He stopped in a spot, got out and got in my truck, and I took him and dropped him off at his house and went back to my little trailer I was living in.
The two met up later that evening to play pool at the Corner Pocket, which was about 60 yards away from where they parked Kim's car.
Did you ask him, why are you in the car?
No, I did not ask.
They eventually parted ways, and the next morning they had breakfast together.
Ate breakfast at Iron Skillet. Just kind of a normal conversation about plans for the day.
It wasn't until later that week that Terry suddenly divulged the reason he was driving Kim's car.
Sometime, it was either Friday night or the next day sometime. He told me that she was at his house, and I guess they argued, and that he shot her. The only thing he told me was back of the head. I think I was too dumbfounded to ask anything else.
And then after that, did he say, what did he do with the body?
He told me.
Why wouldn't you ask? I guess it wasn't even like known she was gone yet, so that would be a pretty innocuous question to be like, what you doing with her car?
That he put her under the slab in one of the bedrooms.
One of his bedrooms? And did he say which one?
I believe he indicated it was the front bedroom closest to the street.
The detectives asked him why he didn't report Terry's confession to the authorities immediately.
I was shocked and astonished, didn't know what to think. I was afraid that I was involved in something that was going to have me
in deep trouble.
Yep.
He said that after his grand
Which is a
jury
pretty
testimony in
normal
2024, he
reaction.
had a change of heart.
After the days started going by, the thoughts just got too deep, too hard on me. I just couldn't put up with it anymore. I'm tired of it being on my conscience.
The more likely explanation for David coming forward was that he realized the detectives knew he was lying and preferred to work out a deal rather than being charged as an accomplice. Regardless, this interview was a huge breakthrough in the case, but before celebrating, they needed to make sure that David was being truthful with them. They started by asking David to do a polygraph test, which he agreed to.
Did Terry tell you he shot Kim?
Yes.
Did Terry tell you where he buried Kim?
Yes.
Not only was David being completely cooperative, but he also passed the polygraph test
Doesn't
with
matter.
flying colors.
Doesn't
They then
matter.
invited Terry to the police station to discuss the death of his father, who, in a completely unrelated incident, was murdered in 2004. But after that decoy conversation was over, the detectives in Kim's case surprised him with a search warrant for his house.
How you doing? All right. Good. I want you to remember me. Oh, I'm one of the guys that.
This is my favorite when they trap the guy.
On the Kimberly Langlois case. It's been signed by the judge.
I want you to understand what all it entails.
Okay.
It's going to be a thorough search of the house, possibly under the house. So if there is information that you want to tell us, is Kimberly on the property?
No.
Is there any evidence of her murder on the property?
Shouldn't be.
Polygraphs are useless.
No.
They are, but
Did you
not a
murder
lot of
Kim?
people know that.
No.
A lot of people get really
So is there any
scared
reason
by
why
them
we're going to find
and
any
shaken,
kind
and
of
they get used as
blood or
leverage.
evidence or remains or anything like that anywhere on your property, sir?
No. I don't know what you want. We want the body. Well, I understand that. I don't have anything to tell you.
Okay. We just want to give you that opportunity.
Is this mine or?
You can keep
That's
that,
your
yes, sir.
Right after serving Terry these papers, they went to inform his wife Violet of what was going on.
We have the search warrant to look for Kimberly Langlois all through the property.
Okay.
If there's anything that we need to know now before we begin, this is the time.
I honestly can tell you, I don't know anything about where she is.
This would be horrific.
Or anything about that. So y'all just do what you have to do.
You just marry a guy, and then 2 decades later, you find out he murdered somebody before he met you.
At this point, it wasn't clear if Violet actually knew something about Terry's involvement. However, the only way to know who was lying
That's
was
fair.
to
I guess
see
we don't know
what
yet.
was under Terry's house. Terry and Violet were allowed to leave for now, and a hotel was booked for them to stay in. But while these interviews
Together?
were taking place, officers had placed tracking devices on their vehicles. The next day, Beaumont PD and multiple other law enforcement agencies went to Terry's house and executed the search warrant. They used GPRs, ground-penetrating radars, to scan each bedroom looking for any
These things are
disturbances
very
beneath
cool.
the tiles. In Violet's bedroom, they discovered that the ground had been hollowed out.
They
Mhm.
observed an
Look
air-
at that,
In
dude. You
Violet's
can. I think that's just the waves, but that low-key looks like a body. There's no way that's actually it, but it really kind of looks like a body right there. I don't think that's the case, but this, yeah, I mean, he already kind of explained what it is. It's like a metal detector, but for like, I don't know, like depth. I don't know how to explain it very well. You're able to like see if the ground is disturbed in any way. People use it to find like bones all the time, like archaeological stuff.
bedroom, they discovered that the ground had been hollowed out.
They observed an area in the front bedroom of the house that was, it appeared that it was missing a piece of rebar. And so that's kind of where we focused our search on.
As they broke through the tiles, they realized that cinder
What a
blocks had
picture.
been stacked underneath the floor in order to prevent the tiles from collapsing. They began removing the cinder blocks and sifting through the dirt, and they quickly uncovered several personal belongings.
Within the first hour, we found a pair of broken sunglasses, a keychain, and a lighter were the first pieces of evidence that we found that were definitely out of place. We knew we were in the right area.
It wasn't long before they started finding bones.
They first located 3 small bones that we were able to verify were human
toe bones. And then it took a couple more hours to kind of get to the main part of her remains, and she was wrapped in a blanket. And so luckily
Jeez,
it
bro.
appeared that everything was in there, but that's when we found the further extent of the rest of the bones.
The detectives were confident that these bones belonged to Kim, so they immediately filed a warrant for Terry's arrest. Using the tracker on his vehicle, they followed him to Tia Juanita's fish camp, where he was having lunch with Violet, and waited for him to exit the building.
Awkward. How did it not smell bad? You know, we don't know.
Back up, Violet, back up.
It might have.
Over here. Get down on the ground. Over here. I'm gonna get her. Get her.
Don't hurt me.
Terry was taken to the back of a police cruiser and transported to the station.
It might have smelled weird the whole time.
Again.
We do have an arrest warrant for you for the offense of murder. You don't want to talk?
Got to say? What can I say?
Well, there's probably a lot to say. I mean, are you curious about what we have found or why you're here?
You got what you want.
Could have been the blanket. Could have been the depth she was buried. Could have been the concrete above her.
I mean, I'm interested in what you have to say. I really am. I will hear you out.
The family, maybe?
Do you have anything to say to Kim's family?
No.
With very little cooperation from Terry, he was
Crazy.
transported to the county jail to await his arraignment hearing.
Terry Rose, you're being charged with the murder of Kimberly Langwell. Do you have anything to say?
Terry, tell us what happened on that night in 1999. This could be your only chance to tell the public right now, right here.
Do you have anything to say to Kimberly's family?
Did you do it?
Back inside the police station, Terry's family was still waiting for answers, so the detectives brought Violet and Terry's brother and sister into the interrogation room to break the news.
Bro.
I was going to ask the obvious question.
I was going to say, I assume we're here because
Yes.
you
They
found
found
something.
him.
Yes.
May I ask where?
Under one of the bedrooms.
Hey, man, Violet. I'm asleep.
Okay, Violet. Violet, okay. Hey, Violet, man. You didn't know it. You trusted him. Okay? It's okay, Violet. It's okay.
Sleeping there.
I understand, Violet.
Bro.
I understand.
His brother and sister, too.
Oh, you're going to get through this. You're going to get through this.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry.
Oh, well, that's a shock.
The excavation team back at Terry's house worked for 13 hours straight to make sure they had every last bit of remains. By the morning, they had recovered an entire human skeleton. All of the evidence was sent to the crime lab, and it was eventually
awesome.
confirmed through dental records that the remains did in fact belong to Kim.
I'm so very grateful to have my mother back. Not in the way that I wanted her, but to know that she's no longer
It's got
being
chills,
held
dude.
is a good feeling.
An autopsy revealed that a gunshot wound had penetrated the back of her skull, suggesting that Kim was killed execution style. Despite the overwhelming evidence against him, Terry pled not guilty. His bond was set at $1 million, a price he was unable to pay, so he remained in the county jail awaiting his trial. After several delays, his trial was set for December 8th, 2025, but before that date came, in August, Terry was offered a plea deal. If he went to trial and was found guilty, his sentence would be anywhere from a minimum of 5 years to a maximum of 99 years in prison.
It's definitely
This
not gonna
plea
be
deal
5,
reduced
man.
that maximum sentence to 40 years, with the possibility
It'll be 40.
of parole after 20.
It'll
in
be
exchange
40.
for a guilty plea from Terry.
And do you want to reject that offer and have your case set for trial?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Terry rejected this plea deal because he saw it as an insult. We know this because following this hearing, he discussed it with his son, Terry Rose Jr., over
Bro.
a jailhouse phone call.
That 40-year offer was like an insult. I'm 68 years old. 40 years, you got to do 20, so I'd be 88, and then I go before the parole board, and you know Tiffany's going to be there to say no, and then I got to wait another 6 months and go again, possibly. You know, I'll be 90 years old before I get out, and then I got to deal with parole for the rest of my life. Oh, no, no, I'm sorry, I'm not accepting.
No, man, it's in the 40s. People die in their 40s and 50s all the time.
That'd be sweet.
I mean,
Yeah, that'd be sweet. I will pee in a cup, send it to y'all to pour on her grave.
What in the world?
Bring you to the line. Oh yeah, I'll fix you right up. See, if she would have been honest and said, look, I was out messing around on you, I could have just walked away, not had a problem, and none of this would have been a problem. But no, she had to keep her mom secrets.
Terry must not have realized that this phone call was being recorded because he just revealed what his motive was
Blaming
for
the child.
killing Kim.
Yeah.
See, if she would have been honest and said, look, I was out messing around on you, none of this would have been a problem.
Clearly, Terry was lying when he said that he moved on following the breakup.
The son must have known. Either that or the police asked the son to try to get more out of him, which is very common. They do use phone calls in jail to like try to get more evidence because for some reason a lot of people on the inside don't understand that the police are just going to be listening to that the whole time or re-listening because it's recorded. It's really weird. It's really weird how people don't get that the police are just going to like be able to listen to that. Yeah, we can hope he was just playing along, but you know, evil.
I figured just leave her alone.
Once the phone call with his son was submitted as evidence, Terry's defense team quickly changed their mind about the plea deal. 1 week before his trial, his attorneys reached out to the prosecutors and said that Terry was willing to plead guilty. The prosecutors offered the same conditions as before, a maximum
Without
of
parole,
40
I bet.
years in prison with the possibility of parole after 20
Wow.
in exchange for a guilty plea. And Terry agreed.
You're charged with the first-degree felony offense of murder from
Doesn't
July
sound
9th
so
of
insulting now, does it?
1999. And how do you plead to that charge?
Guilty,
Are you pleading guilty because you did what they charged you with?
sort of, yes, yes.
No, we're not playing. Hold on. You answer my question, Mr. Burbank. I'm not questioning you. Did you do what they charged you with in cause number 24 DCCR 1369?
Yes.
His sentencing hearing took place on December 16th, 2025. The prosecution wanted to make sure Terry would spend the rest of his life behind bars, and convincing the judge to hand down the 40-year maximum sentence would guarantee that. The first person they called to the stand was David Wiley. He told them all about the night Kim disappeared and the moment that Terry told him about the murder, before giving a half apology to Kim's family.
Is there something you want to say to Tiffany McGinnis and her family?
I wish I'd have came forward right when it happened.
The defense tried to discredit David by suggesting that he only spoke up because he was worried about being charged as an accomplice.
Back in 99, July of 99, how many times did the police come and talk to you?
I think just once.
Did you take part in trying to find Kimberly?
No, I did not.
You said at one time you were an employee of Terry, right?
Yes.
During that time, you would see him on a daily basis?
Generally.
Never said one thing to him saying, hey, man, you got to say something to somebody.
No.
Never did. Never went to the police.
No.
How many times did you talk to the police between
The why
original
behind him speaking up doesn't change if it's truthful. It actually would. It could. Not necessarily, but at the same time, it can be seen as discrediting. So this is the defense's attempt to discredit him as a witness. And discrediting him would, which I'm sure they tried in the preliminary trial, because discrediting him as a witness would give them less of a reason to have even dug inside of his house in the first place, because he was the whole reason that they even knew to dig inside of the house to get a warrant for his house in the first place. So being able to discredit David Wiley's recounting of the situation would have allowed the defense to throw out the body as evidence at all, but clearly they did not succeed in doing so because of the pertinence to his testimony. But that's why he's kind of going after his character here instead, because he's trying to like discredit him as a reliable source. Because once again, it's not whether or not he did it, it's whether there's doubt if he did it inside of a court case. And that's basically what he's arguing in a way. He's saying that like the only reason he is confessing 24 years later to having been told this is because he's worried about being in trouble. which sort of makes it like, why did you wait? You know what I mean? That's his argument.
I'm in 1999 and 2024 when they came to your house just before Thanksgiving.
None.
You had a chance to tell them when they came to your door, right?
Yes.
I think it was two detectives, Detective Wilson and Detective Tamayo.
Yeah, his
You
argument is he
told
could have told the police immediately when they started asking him.
After that, you were called back into the grand jury, correct?
Correct.
And you could have told them then.
Correct.
However, David's intentions were irrelevant to the state's case. During the testimony of Detective
True.
Heather Wilson, they made it clear that David Wiley coming forward was the sole reason that Kim's remains were even discovered.
25 years after she went missing, Kimberly
Which
Wells,
doesn't even, which makes
body was
his
discovered
reason
on
for
the
doing it
terrace.
completely irrelevant,
That's
because
correct. Yes, sir.
him going
With a
forward
gunshot
either
wound to the back of her
in fear
skull,
of punishment
consistent
or
with
from moral
what
conflict has
Wiley
allowed a cold case of
said Terry
24
Rose
years
told
to
him
be
he did.
solved.
Yes.
Shot her in the back.
So
That's correct. Yes.
This showed that regardless
fucking
of David
cares?
being complicit in the cover-up of Kim's murder, he was still hands down a credible witness. The bottom line was that Terry was the one being sentenced, so the state focused on his culpability and his actions following the murder.
At any point in your investigation, has Terry Rose ever indicated he knew what happened to Kimberly Langwell?
No, he did not. We had interviewed him several times, and he indicated that he did not know where she was.
In all this investigation, has there been any evidence to suggest this could have been an accident or unintentional act?
No, sir.
Bullet wound in the back of the head's pretty telling, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hiding a body under your home
That
for
implies
25 years and
deception.
lying about it. What does that indicate to you?
Yeah. I mean,
And
it was
malice.
a massive cover-up for sure.
Obviously, Terry's actions had a profound effect on
Has
Kim's
it ever
daughter,
actually
Tori.
happened that a body was thrown out of evidence? Oh, I'm sure. I don't have like an example for you, but it's absolutely happened, because that train of logic I just went around with discrediting him as a witness is absolutely how it gets to be done. If a witness is the sole reason a body is even discovered, that argument towards the witness's credibility inside of a preliminary hearing can be used to question whether or not he's trustworthy, and if the judge would deem him as untrustworthy or discrediting, the defense could then go on to argue that the police discovered the body off of bad reliability, basically. So, and I mean, that's not the only way it can be done, but I'm sure there's cases, but I can't give you something specific. But that is something that can be happen. Like you guys don't understand that, like the evidence, the paper trail of evidence is so integral to its implementation in court. Like I said earlier, was that last case or this case? When was I talking about chain of evidence? Was it earlier in this one or was it last one? I can't remember. I think it was earlier in this one, right? My brain is gone. If there is a singular discrepancy, that will be argued. And that has the potential of blowing up the rest of the evidence. Like, it is an extremely protected and kept paper trail for this reason alone. That could have gotten all of it thrown out.
Who was just 15 years old at the time of her mom's disappearance.
What happens to the body then? Does it become a separate case? No. This is one case. You can't charge somebody for the same crime twice. That's called double jeopardy. That's against the amendment. The amendment? I think. Yeah. I'm trying to remember. Somebody can't be charged for the same crime twice. That's why when O.J. Simpson got deemed as not guilty for the murder of his wife, he was able to write a book saying that if he did commit the murder, this is how he would have done it. And he called the book If I Did It. Fun fact.
Can you explain to the court what those first few days were like, not knowing where your mom was or what had happened?
Very
to her?
normal behavior.
It was terrifying. It was shocking because I had just talked to her. She was just on the phone with me, and she was excited for our plans. She was joking with me, and so I was lost. I didn't know what to think. 15. My mom is.
Is there a
the
new double
person that I
jeopardy
go
law?
to for
Not to my
everything.
knowledge. That would be
No
that would be a
siblings,
big
it's just
deal
been her
if
and
it
I.
was changed,
So,
because that puts a lot of crimes in
very
question.
lost. You know, the first year, I think I threw myself into anything I could to try to get through life, to not think about the fact that she wasn't there. But then you go home and you don't go home to your mom anymore. And so life is different. It looks very different.
During this terrible chapter of Tiffany's life, Terry did very little to help find Kim, but he did do one thing.
Was there physical searching going on, people looking for her?
Yes.
Were there billboards?
There was a billboard.
Do you know who put that billboard up?
Terry Rose did.
Terry Rose put up a billboard to help find your mom.
Yeah. To find my mom when he knew where she was at.
They recovered her remains and did the testing and the DNA testing and said, yes, we know this is Kimberly Langwell.
Bill of Rights, thank you.
Were you finally able to lay her to
I couldn't
rest?
remember if it was the
Yes, sir,
amendment or
we
what.
were. I would like him sentenced to at least 40 years. I think he deserves that.
If one piece of evidence was going to convince the judge to give Terry 40 years, it was the state's exhibit number 1, the jailhouse phone call with his son.
You know, I'm not like a psychopath, sociopath, crazy. You know, I'm not none of that. I'm just, I had a bad day, I dealt with it wrong, I f***ed up, and yeah, I'm gonna deal with it. She's in her 40s, people die in their 40s and 50s all the time. That'd be sweet.
Talking about her,
Yeah,
the daughter.
that'd be sweet. I will pee in a cup, send it to y'all, to pour on her grave. I'll do that.
The defense claimed that Terry's comment about not being a psychopath was true, citing that this was the only crime he had ever committed.
You have a gentleman here, though, unlike a lot of other cases that you see before this court, that has no record. He has gone 68 years, and there is no record. But you have an individual that has not been in trouble, that has been employed, except
Still a murderer,
he kept
though.
a secret. And he kept a secret to the detriment of a family.
Still
that was
did a
grieving
murder,
at
though.
the
I mean,
time,
you still.
to wanting to know where their loved one was, especially a 15-year-old girl, and that he can't erase.
They also said that Terry's offensive comments about Tiffany were a result of the pending civil suit that Kim's family had filed against him. But the state set the record straight, saying that Terry's comments in the phone call clearly had nothing to do with the civil suit.
The phone call you heard, Judge, was him talking about how it greatly inconvenienced his life to have to deal with a parole board should he ever make it that far. And that no doubt Tiffany McGinnis would tell the parole board not to let him out early. That's what he's complaining about. And his son, who's the other end of that phone call, mentioned
Has
well,
nothing to
maybe
do with the
something will
civil
happen
case.
and she'll die. She's in her 40s. And his response to that is, I would gladly pee on her grave, Your Honor. And the reason I play that, this man has no remorse. No feeling whatsoever for what he did to Tiffany's mother.
Okay,
And what
well,
he's
never
done
mind
to
then.
his
Shit.
family.
If you want to testify, you can get up here and testify. Otherwise, you have refrained from doing that. And
Yeah, shut your ass up, dude.
And on that call, he blames a then 15-year-old girl for not telling him that her mother had moved on. And that's sick and twisted, Your Honor.
Yep.
No more sick and twisted than living in a home with your murdered ex-girlfriend under your floor. A home that he later shared with his common-law wife. Every step of the way has been a slap in the face to Kimberly's family. Every step of this is just...
That is kind of crazy, dude.
Put up a billboard and pretend you're trying to help find her is
Arguably
it is
worse.
vile.
Arguably
It is
worse than doing
inhuman,
nothing. I
and it
can't
is not
lie.
worthy of any consideration from the court, Your Honor. I'm asking the court to enforce that full 40 so Terry Rose spends what's left of his life behind bars. Your
Oh, he's
Honor,
definitely
because that's
gonna.
what he deserves.
It was now time
He
for the
definitely
judge
will.
to hand down Terry's sentence, and quite frankly, she was disgusted.
Quite frankly.
It's not often that I'm at a loss for words, and honestly, it's because I have too many words. And
Same.
anything I say is not going to help
Same
Tiffany
girl.
and her family other than getting this over with. But there's just certain things that I can't even look past to not point out. The fact on that phone call that you said you're not a psychopath is just beyond me.
Nobody accused him either.
Who isn't a psychopath that kills someone that they once cared about and buries them in their house and lives on top of them for 25 years? I would think that's the definition in Webster's dictionary of a psychopath. And Tiffany's right.
I would kind of
4
agree.
years of life. There is a part of me that wishes I had not accepted this plea agreement and that we had gone to trial last week, because I do think a jury would have given you life for 99 years. I actually do. And the fact that you thought you wouldn't is the most narcissistic thing I think I've ever heard in my entire life. I mean, there's just so much more. The billboard, I mean, it's insane. It's psychotic. That's what it is. I hope that today gives Tiffany at least some final closure on all of this and her family. I'm going to sentence you to a term of 40 years in the institutional division of the
Bang.
Texas Department of Corrections.
Bang!
If I had 50, I'd give you 50. If I had 60, I'd give you 60. Whatever it was that the cap was going to be, after hearing all this, it would have been whatever it was.
Finally, after 26 years,
Fuck
Kim's
yeah.
family had some closure knowing her killer would be locked up for good. But before Terry was taken away, Tiffany spoke to the courtroom one last time.
For 25 years, I woke up and I went to sleep with the same unbearable questions. Where is my mom and what happened to her? The pain of not knowing is indescribable. It is grief, it is fear, and a deep sense of abandonment that never let go. The reality that she was buried beneath this man's house all of these years, held captive even in death, is unbearable. For Terry, do you remember me? That was the first thing you said to me when you approached me just 3 years after my mother disappeared. Then you asked, did you ever find your mom? I was stunned that you had the nerve to speak to me at all, and horrified by what you said. You were taunting me, knowing the entire time that you had my mother. You referred to the day you murdered my mother and buried her beneath your bedroom as a bad day.
Sick.
That bad day cost me everything. It stole my childhood, my sense of safety, my trust, the future that her and I planned, and the chance for my children to ever know their grandmother. You have no regard for human life. Listening to you and your son, Terry Rose Jr., speak so callously about my death, about how happy it would make you if I died so you could pour pee on my grave, shows the depth of the evil you carry. It reveals a family that treats human life as disposable. You are a murderer. Your son clearly has learned to view life the same way you do, and now he passes that to his son, your grandson, who also awaits trial for murder. You all are vile, vile human beings.
Terry Rose was transported to the Dieball unit in the Texas Department of Corrections and will be eligible for parole at the ripe age of 88.
I'm feeling
Correction. Terry
vile, vile human. So away.
The third. You guys know what I say about people named after their parents and grandparents, right?
Texas
Not good
Department
for
of
their health.
Corrections and will be eligible for parole at the ripe age of 88.
I'm feeling relieved.
Bloodline curse,
Relief
yep.
that this is finally over. Happy to walk away and
Not good.
know that we don't have to come back and do this anymore. I want people to remember my mom more than anything. To me, that's what's most important, is that
She looks
she
so
is
much like her.
remembered.
Oh, gosh, dude. I mean, just evil. Yeah. Just twisted, dude. The fact that he, like... Ugh. 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 What would I do if I was in the position of David? David. Like his friend? Oh, I'm snitching. Are you kidding me? I don't care if I've known you for 20 years. You just straight up admit that you killed somebody to me. I'm telling someone. That's fucking gross. Are we dead serious? I'd play it cool and I'd immediately be going to the police. I have nothing to lose by being labeled a snitch. If it means a woman's body is found and a child's life is absolved. I mean, that would have saved that woman 25 years of just grief had he said something. And while his motivation for saying something is irrelevant, it is awful that it took him that long. And now he gets to be known as the guy who took 25 years to even admit he knew about a murder. Not exactly great to be known for either. Albeit him coming forward is the only reason this case was solved. But, and once again, I mean, during that whole thing, his reasoning wasn't actually important. Doesn't matter here because we're not the court case. But yeah, I think I would have said something pretty quickly. I don't think I would have walked up and ran to the police station. But, you know, a lot of people would be scared because that the killer would come kill them if they snitched. Well, what's the killer gonna do when he's arrested and in jail for the rest of his life after admitting to premeditated murder? Also, like, plenty of people who get told about a crime don't end up okay. You know, like the whole no witnesses sort of thing. That applies to posthumous witnesses as well, like post crime witnesses. Like those guys count as witnesses technically in a way. So like they would be seen as a loose end, and murderers don't like knowing somebody knows they murdered usually. Unless you're stupid like Terry here. Clearly. I don't think he would have been caught had he said nothing. Had he not told that guy, nothing would have happened to him. That festered for 24 years. And he thought it didn't matter until today. Or when it happened, I guess. You know, today, for example, for this. But 24 years passed since he had admitted to that. And nothing came of it. But it did, eventually. Because objectively, in the eyes of Terry, David was a loose end that he allowed loose. And like I said, while like the logic and the withholding of it by David for as long as it was isn't exactly my favorite way for a case to be solved, it did solve it. And he did come forward eventually. And it's very possible nothing would have even came of this had he not. even if it took 24 years. And ideally, he is doing something to make up for that. I don't know. I'm sure he dealt with a lot of guilt and still does. I don't think her daughter would have been okay either way, but maybe she would have been a little more okay had that been figured out pretty quickly. But what a piece of shit.